but you're looking more for maybe focusing in on the wheel of a motorcycle and dirt flying up and things of that nature. It doesn't all have to be in focus. You just kind of want to communicate a concept, but you're not trying to do a photojournalistic style of the race. In other words, you don't necessarily want to see everybody in formation running down the track. You want to see some action, maybe with one cycle, um, and sort of use your imagination when you're doing fine art photography because you really you really want it to look somewhat abstract because it is fine art again. And you could argue with me here that there are all sorts of people that do fine art, and they show very realistic images, and that's true. It's not always that it's not realistic. It just isn't photojournalistic. You're not trying to capture the rays. Um, you're trying to show some of your personal style in this because it is fine art and it's about you as much as it is about the image that you're putting together. So you want to show your personal sort of artistic experience wherever you are. You're trying to convey an idea or a message or an emotion. So, one emotion could be that someone didn't win the race. And so you take a picture of that person and maybe they're, a little down or whatever, but that basically conveys an emotion or a message or an idea in that picture. And so again, you're not showing a picture of the race, you're showing a picture of someone, and that someone is having some sort of emotion. I'm going to stop for a moment and ask Angie, what sort of photographs are you into?
She stepped back.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll ask her in a minute. Um, and again, we're going to go back to photojournalism. It's not a literal representation of anything. It is strictly a concept. You want to look at it that way. And when you're doing a cohesive body of work, for instance, James, if he were doing work on a race, you would want to stick with that theme. You want to always sort of produce that kind of idea, and you want to show something here that you're really basically very passionate about. Rick likes landscapes and other things like that. Umit does astrophotography. I just shoot anything that comes up. Um, so, we all have things that we're passionate about, and almost anything, it doesn't really matter what it is, can be turned into fine art photography. Um, Here are some of the things that you can use for techniques for your fine art. Use long exposures, and that really will create a soft or dreamy effect often in landscape photography. Maybe you want to move your camera around a little bit. Sometimes tilting the camera forward and let it up while you have a longer shutter speed produces a really interesting effect with something. Some of the things will still be in focus. Some will, if you tilt it down or up, will be elongated and it can produce streaks of color in your image. So that's one way to do it. And you kind of I'll show you an image in a moment that uses that technique to some degree, and it works very well. And you really need to pay attention to what the image has in it before you do that, because that won't work with everything. Post processing is a real key to some of this. You can do a lot of stuff in Photoshop with this, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that because this is your darkroom. This is your enlarger. This is your uh, place you can dodge, you can burn, you can increase the exposure, you can change the texture a bit. You can do almost anything if you're using Camera Raw or just Photoshop by itself. Um, some people, to do the fine art photography, use a pinhole camera, and that's entirely different. That's film for the most part. And you can take that film and then scan it in, and you have a digital image. Another one is to do cyanotypes, or you can do hand painting. You can actually take color pencils and paint on your print and then scan it back in or leave it as it is, and that can be fine art as well. Angie, I asked you a question, but you had departed. I'd just like to know what kind of photography you really are interested in.
Hey, thank you. Sorry, I had to go get a fan. I'm sitting outside. I was just baking.
Oh, that's
Um,
okay.
I I do a lot of everything. I would say I do some documentary stuff. I do portraits and I do wildlife, I'd say, and just yeah, lifestyle basically.
Okay.
Maybe some street, kind of a
Okay.
jack of all stuff.
All right.
Hmm.
Well, this is sort of what I do. I showed this the other night when we were just playing around, and uh,
Oh, cool.
remember it here in a moment. But Hilo said that this looked like the junk drawer in his kitchen, and it is old objects from my grandmother's kitchen. It's her hand beater that she used for cakes and things like that. And that was one of them is her butter churn. The other is a butter mold, and then an ice tray. These basically were put together, and the theme of this was objects once familiar. I used this with about, oh, I don't know, I think seven different categories: um, fashion, kitchen objects, communication, um, because I just felt like this would be a nice way for someone my age to remember these things because I've been around when they were used. And then for someone who isn't my age, who may not recognize these, this would be an interesting text to look at and realize that before we had KitchenAid blenders and before we could buy butter in the store and before we had ice makers that dispensed ice through the door and the refrigerator, we had all these things that we did manually. I put in communication, there's a dial phone because a lot of people have never used a dial phone. It was kind of surprising to me when I worked on this. And this was sort of a passion for me because I used objects that came from my family. I had my grandfather's straight razor, his razor strop, and his shaving mug and brush. And I put that in an area that we looked at for like how we, got ready in the morning, so to speak. I can't remember the exact category, but it was like that. But uh, fine art photography, basically is intended to be sold very much like a painting. There are many galleries specialize in fine art photography. Jackson Gallery here in Atlanta, the Mason Fine Art, several of them actually do specialize or have a section on fine art photography. And you have to realize that fine art photography has been around forever. Some of the first pioneers in fine art photography are Ansel Adams, Alfred Stieglitz, and others. Um, so you can also look, if you're interested, there's a publication called Lens Scratch, and it basically is online. And they have daily features where you can place your images. They also have discussions about fine art photography, things that you might be interested in, see what other people are doing in fine art photography. And also Facebook groups can help you connect with other artists. So here's a picture of Ansel Adams. And what you have to appreciate with this is that he didn't have Photoshop. He did everything by hand. And the picture on the right is the picture that he took. That is moonrise over Hernandez. And according to the story, he was coming back from a trip and he saw this image and he got out and set up his tripod, and nothing went very quickly with the tripod. And by the time he got it set up and took one image, he wanted to take three. The lighting had completely changed and he couldn't take another image. So he worked with this one. The image on the left is the one that sold in a gallery recently for something like $300,000. So, if you're an aspiring fine art photographer, get out there and work it and see if you can't do the same thing. But if you know anything about Ansel Adams, he was a master at all the things like this that he did. You can see from one image, you can barely see the little town and all of the lights that are coming on. But in the finished image, you can see everything clearly. And it's a wonderful masterpiece. But I couldn't do that even with Photoshop. So this is another Cindy Sherman, female fine art photographer. She took images these are all her own image, and she dressed sort of in different time periods. This was the time period that she called the working woman. And this series that she put out is a very famous series. It is in one of the, oh gosh, I'll forget the name of the museum. At any rate, it's in their permanent exhibit, and she's still quite well known. Some of her work I don't like as well as this, but she's very famous. This is Alfred Stieglitz, and you have to realize that he's way before digital. He took most of his image with a 5x7 camera and had to set up a tripod. And both of these scenes are in the middle of winter. One is the Flatiron Building in New York, and the other, the very early image of Fifth Avenue with people traveling down it. And what makes these fine art? Well, you just have to look at the image and realize it's sort of out of focus. And that may be just because there was a storm in one of them or it was snowing in the other. But at any rate, these are not what you would call photojournalistic pictures. There's no one featured in this except here we have I think it was actually an emergency vehicle of the day. And so it's just a street scene, but you've got a snowstorm, you're slightly out of focus. It's not photojournalistic. It's not a portrait. It's just basically sort of a capture of something that he thought was interesting. Here's I'll get it wrong, Henri Cartier-Bresson. He was known for what was called the deciding moment or decisive moment. And he sat at the top of the stairs and he waited for a bicyclist to come along. And he snapped the photograph of the bicyclist going down the road, and he was at the top of the steps. The one on the right is a fellow jumping across a pool of water, but you can see that he's elevated. His reflection is in the water. And so this whole image or his whole set of images are about a moment in time when someone decides to do something. The guy decided to jump. He's jumping. You can see that he's not splashing down. And so that's really what makes this fine art. The bicyclist is out of focus. He's showing motion. And the stairway is in good a focus as a camera of that day could get it. So those are fine art images that Henri Cartier-Bresson is quite an old photographer, as is Henry Stieglitz, or Alfred Stieglitz, I'm sorry. And Ansel Adams is the more contemporary of all of these. But this is just to illustrate that fine art's been around for a long time. So this is the way to really sort of begin this project, if you want to call it that. Think about what you're passionate about. We've talked about that. I've asked you what you like to do. And James explained what he likes. Angie talked about what she liked. Now, once you know what you want to do, what message do you want to convey? I've never, done wildlife photography once in my life. And it was sort of like wedding photography. I did that once in my life too. And I was in a wader and I waded out into this water to capture some pictures of birds leaving the water or coming in and that sort of thing. I dropped my camera in the water and shorted it out. So I got absolutely no pictures from that day. So I'm not passionate about wildlife photography, but Angie is. So you could take that passion and you could put it together with some birds in formation, flying on the water, whatever you wanted to do. And you could change that around. That could be like my images are in very sharp focus. They're all very high key and very distinct blacks and whites in the images. So you have to decide what really would work like with wildlife or what would really work with the other things that you're passionate about. Pick one thing and work with it. And think about the message you want people to see when you look at those images. I talked to you about what I wanted people to see when they looked at the images that I took. And that's the same thing you want to do. And again, what subjects do you like to photograph? That's the key to getting started with all of this. Then you figure out what techniques are you interested in. Are you interested in, for instance, there is a technique, and we're not going to discuss it tonight, but it's called the Orton effect for landscaping, where you create sort of a glow on your landscape. It'd be like out of focus, but it's one of those things. I'll show you a few pictures maybe in a moment if I can figure out how to get them up. What they might look like. And then you talk about the techniques that you're interested in. For instance, are you interested in black and white? Are you interested in color? Are you interested in making something, converting it in Photoshop to something like an infrared image where the greens appear more white? Are you interested in, like, if you're doing portraits, and I forget, there was a fellow in Houston that was a famous portrait photographer, and I used to have a book here by him, and I'm looking over here and seeing if I can find his name, but that he imitated, he took his portraits of people and he made them look like an old painting. He'd find a painting that he really liked that was from the old masters, and he would pose the people in the shot very similar to that and take an image of that. And that was his fine art using portraiture. Other techniques could be, we talked about camera motion. We've talked about like blurring your photograph to some degree. And you can do that, and there may be things about that photograph that you want to be perfectly in focus. So you can, in Photoshop, you can take that image, you can blur it, then you can put a layer palette on top of it, and you can use your black and white paint and a brush, and you can go in and brush away the blur so that you have some things in focus, some things out of focus. So you have to learn how to use your tools in Photoshop. Robin Davis is the lady that actually gave us the challenge of creating 4 to 5 images and submitting those so that she can look at them. And she gave us some things that we needed to pay attention to. One is tonality. So when you're taking your images and you want a cohesive body of work, you want them to look alike. So whether you use high key like I did in brightness, or you want something less, you want low key, um, you want natural light, coolness, warmth, whatever you want, sepia in the image. In some ways you can tone them. We'll look at some of her images in a minute, and you'll see that she used green in one, and she used it because when we think about some of the things that were in her images were older statues. And in many cases, those get sort of a green patina on them. And so she used that green to sort of highlight that. Ratio of your image, you want those ratios to be reasonably good. You can crop them to a specific size if you want to. But she was talking about when you're putting these things together, you're talking more about putting your images up in a exhibit. You don't necessarily, you can have them all one size if you want to and just line them up. Or you could possibly have some rectangular, some square. I don't know about round, but it might work. But that you want those things to fit together, and that's what you do. You try to line them up so that, excuse me, let's say you have 2 rectangular images, and you have 3 images. You have 2 rectangular, 1 square, and you put the square in the center. That sort of, creates a cohesive look to what you're doing. Okay, quality of light needs to be consistent. We've talked about this already. Soft or harsh, infrared, misty or foggy, hot, cool, or showing a texture. Those are just things you can do with your image. Some of these things you can shoot and you're in camera, you'll see it. Like if you're out on the Chattahoochee River taking some images, there may be some mist rolling in. And if that's the case, you may want that in your photograph, and you may want to take a series of images with that. Texture. I think of texture more as if you're doing something like maybe some concrete images or something like that, that you're taking pictures of. You want to highlight the texture in those statues or whatever, then you can use that. The fourth thing is to be consistent with your lens and viewpoint. So if you're shooting with a 50mm lens, stay with it. Excuse me for a second. If you're shooting with a telephoto lens, stay with it. Don't venture away from it, because you want everything to be consistent. And the viewpoint, and we'll look at some images to So if you're low, taking low, and you're looking up at the images, stay with that. If you're high, stay with that. If you're straight on, stay with that as well. Macro versus micro, standard lens. A lot of flowers you can use a macro lens and do very well with. Um, all right, we're looking at, these are Robin's images. This is a cat series. And if you look at these, we're going to look at these for one tonality. Do you think that's all consistent? Now, I do think for the most part, the she's obviously using the same size lens and she's shooting at a pretty much the same angle. She's looking at these cats in the eyes, with the exception of the one on the lower left hand, the orange cat. The cat's looking back over its shoulder at you, and you can see the eyes, but I don't think it's exactly like the others where you're looking sort of face on with them. But you have to be your own judge. Do you think those images all fit together? Now, the tonality of the images to me is not completely consistent. If you look at the upper right, the black cat, that to me is inconsistent with the one adjacent to it, which has a little bit of a green hue, and the one even further on in the top row, the black and white cat, that has a little bit of a green hue to it. And so does the orange cat. But then if you look down below the black cat, you see another black and white cat looking out from inside something at you. And whatever that is out of focus. And that tonality is more akin to the image above it than any other image. So I'm not sure that everything has to be exact, but that's what she was looking for. Now, here we're looking at all of these have a consistent tonality. There is a green effect in all of these. And again, you have the Leaning Tower of Pisa, you have a Greek urn, and what's unique about the ones in the lower register here is most of those are composite images, meaning that she took different images and she just decided that they fit together one way or the other, and she put them together. And that's, it's a great technique for using in fine art photography is to use compositing, where you have more than one image, you look at them and you think, okay, those fit nicely together. The urn in the lower left is really very close to us, but the building is far away. And that image could have been taken, but I don't think it was. I think the urn was taken separately from the other and they're been put together. Another thing about these images, if you'll notice, she's using borders. And that's another thing you can use in fine art photography that works really well in an issue like this. She has this black border around it, and that border in kind of a way looks like maybe it was a Polaroid image, for those of you who remember Polaroid. But it can just be an image, and it could be a border that you create. And those are easy to do when you use a brush tool and a color and whatever you intend to do. And you can make borders around your photographs, and it works really well. Here's another set of images that she took for an advertising campaign for this villa. And you immediately look at these and see that they're all sepia. Um, they all are pretty much taken from the same angle. And what holds this group together, what is the constant theme, is this villa. These are all taken at the villa, and there's interesting subjects there. So that makes it cohesive in that sense. The cats were the central feature of the first one that I showed you, and the second one, the central feature of that was just simply mostly older, and I would say European objects from it looked like Italy to me for the most part, but I'm not sure. But those are the things that hold these images together. Now, we were talking earlier about flowers, and this is an interesting series. The tulips on the right-hand side are extremely intensely lit from the back. It's a backlighted object, and it's such that it's actually almost blown out. But you still see color, you still see interesting objects in the tulips. But this is not just a picture of tulips. This is a picture of changes that you make through lighting of a photograph. And what you've actually created here is really almost painting of these tulips in a way. The image on the left are like sweet peas, and they're in vertical vases, and there's some camera movement in that. And it's also a composite image because you have what it doesn't have to be a composite image. Maybe they set this up with the wooden thing in the background, but I suspect this is a composite image. Somebody took a picture of the fence, and then they took a picture of these flowers, and those have been pasted together. I could be wrong. I didn't take the image, so I don't know, but it's an interesting way to create something that is not just a picture of a flower in a vase. This is the Orton effect, and it's more pronounced in the lower right-hand image because you see the mist in the background, and that's really the lighting coming from behind or in front of you, coming through some trees or coming through bushes or things. That's really the kind of photograph that works well with this process. There are many, many different ways to achieve it in Photoshop. And if you're really interested in that, Rick, who's on the call with us, and I in August are doing a workshop on the Orton effect. He's going to do Lightroom. I'm going to do Photoshop. But this is a little more than we could get into tonight. Okay, I think I have these right. So Pat, you and Hylos are going to have to check them to be sure. But the final date for submissions for this project is Monday, July 13th. You want to submit 4 to 5 images. And again, you want to be sure you want to pay attention to what she wanted. Tonality, line of view, which means keeping your camera either elevated or below or to the left or the right of the images. I have to go back to the line to remember all of them, but you want to have a cohesive body of work. So decide what you want to do, stick with it, and make it your own. Whether you do something that looks somewhat real or something that's completely like ethereal or misty or whatever you want to do, work with that. And the website for uploading your images, the URL for it is markchandlerphotography.smugmug.com/upload. You can see it there if you want to copy it from your screen. I think Pat has put the URL hot site in a couple of his emails so that you can actually go to that and it takes you directly to this. Now, Pat or Hylos, is our evening with her really July 20th or is it in August?
July, July.
Okay, so it's July 20th, 7.
Yes.
Okay. So I got something right for a change.
Yeah, that's right. Monday, the 20th at 7 o'clock.
Okay. And that's it from me. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. We just need to hang on just a minute. Let me see if I can figure out how to stop sharing. It's right in front of me. It's just that my cursor doesn't seem to want to go there.
Yeah, I think Pat's got some pictures he wants to try to show us.
Yeah. And I would like for you to, that didn't work. Are you still seeing it?
Oh, I see you.
No,
Okay,
it's good. It's good, Michael.
Great. So I'd like, if you have any photographs that you have with you, I'd like to see them. I'd like for you to share them with us. Don't be worried about anybody being judgmental. We're just interested in what you've got to work with. And if you have any questions about that, I'll be happy to give it my best shot. There are others here that can also pitch in. Don't everybody speak at once.
I think Pat right now, as far as I know, is the one that's got some pictures. Gonna try to show
Well, I
us.
mean, if you want, I'll go ahead and start it off. How's that?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Working.
Yeah, it's sharing now. There it is.
Nice.
As you can tell, I'm not using my MacBook. This is my Intel PC. Yay.
And
But,
it works. It worked.
Yeah, it did. It worked good. So Angie and James, this is I did a couple of different ideas here. Probably the things that I'd like to point out that I've done wrong or could be improved a little bit. I think what I did right though was if you look at the coffee cups, how they're pouring into the center. So I think that kind of brings the eye, it keeps the eye in the photographs. I think when I reshoot this again, I will have a higher mound of beans in the center, and maybe the measure in the background, maybe not, and just crop down to right about where the espresso can, the text espresso on the can is. But I'm just going to play around with it a little bit. So here's the first one that I kind of did.
I like it.
Do you guys have any? Please be kind, Angie. Please be kind. So do you guys have any comments about? Because looking at this, I'm hoping is making you think about how you can do it. And I've got a couple of other ones I'll show you.
It's making
Not
me
only
wanna
me,
go
but
to
Joy.
Susie's.
I want a cup of coffee.
Okay, it worked.
I think it does work, Pat. I think it's well done.
Yeah, I like this.
I think probably one of the things that I picked up from Michael and Robin when she gave the presentation a couple months ago was, if you notice, a lot of her stuff is in mono, and I think if I were to go with this concept, I need to fool with the hands a little bit because the hands just are just. I just got to fool with the hands to make it. I don't want to have invisible UFO uh, espresso pots dangling in the air, but I think the hands kind of take away a little bit. But I've been thinking about doing this in mono, Michael. I don't know.
Hey Pat, put white gloves on the hands. Try that.
Do what? Put what on it?
Put white gloves on the hands.
Do you know what? I know just the two guys I can borrow their white gloves from. So,
Your favorite hand models.
here you go. There you go.
I love it. I love it, Pat. Yeah, I have all of this equipment at my house, so this reminds me of the mornings at my house. But I think it would look great in black and white. Also, see the guy on the left with his thumb holding that little mini mocha pot? I think
Yeah.
that would look cool if you had the guy on the left having just his thumb holding that bigger one. And then you would be kind of symmetrical, but that's just me. But
Oh,
I
I
think
see
it
what
would look,
you're saying.
Yeah.
yeah, I think it would look great in monochrome or some kind of
Agreed.
HDR or whatever they call it. Yeah, it's cool though.
Okay.
Very cool.
Probably the other trick I did, looking at the pictures Michael was showing, was to keep a clean background. So what I did was I just put a piece of poster board just in the kitchen, right up to the wall, and another one on the bottom. So it's kind of a clean line. I think in the final product, I may actually knock out the line, but I'm just not sure. And I want to make sure that the shadows fall the same way. If you look at the one on the left, see how the shadows go into the wall?
Yeah.
It's just where I held it in relation to the window. And the other one is how I would like for it to kind of be, just right there, straight down, how most people would kind of think about it.
Pat, what are you sharing this on? Like, what are these images? What is that?
Oh, what I did was I took the 3 shots and just went into Photoshop and just put all 3 into one. But Angie, the easiest way really is just go to Microsoft Word and create a table for your paper, and then you can drop the images in that way too, and then just do a screen grab off of that. But for these, I use Photoshop.
Okay. Good
I
idea.
like Michael's idea. Just let you know, this is the first time he's talked about it, so you're the first ones. Is the border concept as kind of a unifying concept that Michael kind of keeps preaching to us here. So that's something I may want to consider as well. So that's that one. Now I'm going to show you the one that Joy did. So Joy went out and grabbed some of her mom's Hummels. If anyone knows anyone who wants to buy some Hummels, we have a boatload of them. So feel free to reach
Hummels.
out. So I think how Joy composed it was nice in that on the side that the 2 girls are looking in and the boy is looking straight at you. And so on that, I like it. But if you notice, the background kind of went gray on this. I can't remember why. Maybe it's the strength of the flash, but I think I would do more of a white as much as I can rather than the charcoal.
Is that styrofoam, Pat?
Yeah, it is. It is. It's styrofoam.
You can see the texture in it.
I tell you what, Mr. Olson, there are times you impress me with how much you know.
And then there's the other 99% of the time.
Okay.
I'm going to ask maybe a silly question, but what would these look like if it was just a totally black background and just saw the 3 little objects there? Totally black.
It's a good point. I think I'd probably have to hit him with a little bit of backlighting to kind of separate him a little bit from the background. But thanks, Hylos. I'll talk to Joy and we'll give it a shot.
Yeah. That other one you did, the first one, I thought
Yeah.
about black background with it too, with the coffee.
Yeah, I think the only thing with the black and the coffee was the coffee itself is pretty black.
That's true. That's
And
true.
I'd have to use backlighting to kind of separate that from the background. But
Yeah.
otherwise, I think it would kind of work. But you know, all we do is try different things, right?
That's right.
So here's my obsession.
And you add a
Oh,
little bit of
that's
steam
Michael,
to it.
it's your fault. Is the magnolias. So what I did on this one was I didn't realize this was the PSD. I thought it was the JPEG. Was on this one. What I was trying to do was to show the life cycle, but what happened was, if you look at the center one, that obviously is the start. It's kind of a square where it kind of violates the rule that you've kind of heard that all three should be alike. But what I tried to do is the two on the end, I tried to make those have exactly the same dimensions. So basically, this is the life cycle of a magnolia. And Joy will tell you I've gone out many a morning or afternoon shooting other magnolias. So, but seriously, with all the stuff I've shot, I still kind of like these the best. So, I think what I'm also kind of looking at is Michael likes the color in this, and I do too. But I think I'd have to lighten up the leaves in the center just a little bit to make them pop a little bit more. Um, I like the brown, kind of shows the magnolia bloom dying, of course. And of course, the one on the left, I was thinking about, it's really hard to see in this one, but if you look at the petal coming out from the center of the one on the left, it actually has some of the seeds and they look like matchsticks falling down. And that's how those guys propagate. So just to let you know, you heard it here. So Angie, if you were to shoot this one, how would you do it?
Oh, wait, let me see if I can get it to go back to small. Okay. You know, I love the one on the right that has, it's floppy. I love this. I think it's really cool. I don't know. I was just sitting here thinking because I know that center one is kind of darker and that's a challenging problem because magnolias kind of just create lots of shade. So you'd have to have morning light on it. You'd have to shoot them all at the same time of day. That it's challenging to get that. But I don't know. I love the floppiness of the two on the outside, and then the one in the middle is kind of perky. I don't know. I don't know. It's challenging. I think just maybe an early morning or maybe a late afternoon. I don't know. Whenever the light hits that center one,
Okay.
it's tough.
So you mean kind of match them a little bit better?
Well, I feel like the blossom with the leaves that support it is lost with the background.
Yeah.
It's lost a little there. So I think the challenge would be to find a way to get it to stand out more from the background. Whereas these other two do seem to stand out more. But it's just the way they're shot.
Yeah, I think on the one on the left, if I were forced to go with this, I would basically select background and then just kind of draw it down a little bit as my eye keeps going off to the left where that kind of light's a little bit stronger on the top left corner. So, okay. James, any comments? This is one of the few times you can abuse me.
No, true. I mean, same kind of thought as Angie had. I think the two on the right really do like they stand out completely, and the light looks different from the one in the middle. The one on the left looks like there's light hitting the bloom. So, yeah, pretty similar thoughts, to be honest.
Yeah, I was trying to book a flight to Italy to go shoot some of those villas and everything out there, but I couldn't swing it. Joyce said, "Hell no, you ain't doing that." I don't think this is.
I'll say that has been kind of the challenge for me as far as like creating a series is just I don't know,
Ooh, I
we're
love
here in the suburbs and there's I don't know, you look around, you think of like, street photography and stuff like that, and you think of like big cities and all these things, but how to kind of bring like ordinary parts of suburban life to feeling, you know, exquisite like they're fine art. It's a challenge.
Angie, I didn't
like
know
this
this was
better.
on my desktop, but I'd created a monochrome version as well, and I went
I
into
love it.
Photoshop and
Yeah,
I
I
kind of
like this
lightened the
better,
leaves,
Pat.
like you were saying.
That looks a lot cooler.
That looks really good. I love that.
Yeah,
I
here the
think
flowers
the
pop.
thing
All
about
three stages of life pop.
I'm sorry, what, Rick?
I said here, all three stages of life pop.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. So I did do it. Um, I wanted to show you this picture. I've been struggling with my Lightroom catalog. I've got so many duplicates right now. I'm trying to clean out my iPhone, put everything into Lightroom, and I'm sure I've got a boatload of duplicates, so I'm struggling. But I wanted to show you this one I kind of came across. Michael, this is the one I sent you about an hour ago. So Joy and I go to Fogo de Chao, which is a Argentinian steakhouse, and on your birthday, if you sign up, you can get your meal at half price, uh, or even all off, and the other person pays full price. I'm not sure how it works, but I'm just trying to set the stage for it. So this is a place that is trying to pitch itself as being different from all the other American steakhouses. And this is a picture that they have on their side wall.
Hmm.
And Michael, I think this is kind of what we're talking about. So
That's pretty
what I
cool.
like about this is each one focuses on a different thing, just like Michael did with his kitchen utensils that Hilo said he emptied out on the floor. And so just to show you, it's just a little bit different way of looking at it, but it's very nice for a decor.
Actually,
Really cool.
that is exactly what I was talking about. Now, when I was talking with James earlier, I mentioned don't just focus on a motorcycle coming down the track because that isn't going to work. You need, like, you've got the spurs for the gaucho over here. You've got a knife in his belt, and over here you have a stirrup, I guess, on a saddle. I don't know, I can't see if it's a horse or not, but
Yeah,
it's
I
not the
think that's
whole
what it
horse.
is.
You're just seeing the stirrup. But while I'm on this talking to James, I want you to go look up photographer William Eggleston. Okay.
Yeah, I've
He
actually
wrote-
I've already been researching a ton of William Eggleston, and they've got a few of his photographs down at the High Museum right now,
yeah.
in their photography exhibit.
Well, he brought suburban life to color.
Yeah.
And there are two photographs that you should really look at. One is the tricycle that he
Yep.
focused on that's huge and the house in the background. And the other one is in like a cafe, a little cafe somewhere. And there's
Yeah.
a woman who has a what I call highway to heaven hairdo and a cigarette, and her back is to you. She's sitting in a booth, and there's a guy sitting on the other side, and there's a clock on the wall. That's
Yeah.
all there is to that picture, but that pretty much shows a little bit of suburban life. And he has a lot of other stuff in there that shows suburban life. So to give you won't do something that he did. You don't want to replicate that.
Yeah.
But
No.
at least it'll give you some idea of what to look for when you're
For sure.
walking around.
Yeah.